From day one, we are told who we should be, how to live, and what's acceptable. Before we even have a chance to discover ourselves, our society has already drawn those lines for us. But what happens when those lines are keeping us from knowing and embracing who we truly are? Welcome to Unbox Yourself with Samantha Fox, a podcast about unpacking and unlearning everything that's kept you from living as your true self. Through honest conversations about your internal emotional landscape, sexuality, coming out later in life, relationships, and the journey to self-acceptance, we break free from the boxes we never chose. Hi, everybody. Today on Unbox Yourself with Samantha Fox, I have on a guest who went through the 12-week Sexuality Liberation Program, Unbox Your Sexuality, back in 2023, and her name is Wendy. This is the first time I have had a guest on the podcast that wanted to share where she was before finding me on social media, what she experienced during the program itself, and then what has happened in her life since. And all of this is in 2 years because it was just 2 years ago that she was in the program. So if you have any curiosity about what can happen in an intensive 12-week program where you unpack, unlearn, and unleash yourself, Wendy is here today to share her story. She is 56 years old today. She was 54 when she took the program. And this is just such a gem of a show for anybody who is coming out later in life and just wondering, how the hell am I ever going to get through this? So stay tuned, like, follow, share, comment wherever you listen to your podcasts. And thank you so much for joining us. Hi, Wendy. Welcome to Unbox Yourself with Samantha Fox. I'm so happy to have you here today.
Oh, Samantha, it is so good to talk to you again.
So it's been quite some time. I haven't seen you. I think it's 2 years.
Yep.
And we really have not connected since then. And I think you wanted to come on and just share a little bit of your story and, you know, a little bit about where you were before, what worked for you in the program, and then also where you are today, 2 years later.
Oh my gosh, living my big gay happy life is where I am 2 years
I
later.
love
That
it.
is for sure.
I love it. So good. So good. I'm so glad to hear that. Yeah. So tell the audience a little bit about, what was going on for you at 54 when you joined the Unbox Your Sexuality program.
Oh, like, how do I make this, somewhat concise? Because it was such a whirlwind. But I'd been living, I'd been married to a man for 25 years. I had 3 grown children. I was a grandma at that point. I had my oldest had had a baby. And I was living my beautiful looking overachiever life. Super successful in terms of my career. I'd sold my business to a bigger company. I was an elected official in my town. And I just constantly, and I mean constantly, would just have this gnawing emptiness inside. And I was like, well, maybe if I volunteer more, I can fill that hole. Or maybe if I, set a bigger goal with my business, maybe that would fill the hole. Maybe if I spent more time with the family, that would fill that hole. But 2022, I have to look back now and I can say that the universe had my back, but sure as fuck didn't feel like it at the time. In which I had a major family betrayal. I had a major business partner betrayal, and I had a major marital betrayal, all prefaced by my dog dying. So I just was like my whole life was thrown into this chaos. And like suddenly I had nothing around me that I used to look to kind of fill that emptiness. Like I was laid off. I had, no family except for my, my immediate family. And, I finally realized in that process that the husband that I had been married to, even though he had stopped drinking, had just replaced that with more socially acceptable addictions. Let me put it that way. I spent a few months reeling, going, what the hell? And I'm just going to admit it and I don't want this to sound scary, but there was a point where I was like, do I even want to stick around on this earth? Because I kind of lost my identity.
Yeah, that is scary.
It was really terrifying. And I was waiting, like I had to get on a waiting list to find like a traditional therapist. But what really happened was that once these like 3 men who had a majorly vested interest in keeping me small and keeping me in my little box and making them look good and tapping into all my people pleasing skills that well honed by the time I was 54. Once I was like, wow, I don't have to people please or, please any of these fuckers because they betrayed me so badly. Suddenly I went, I remember so specifically that moment, like, wow, what would my life look like if I didn't have to live it to make them happy? And that, like, I'm even getting chills thinking about that moment because that was the beginning of the opening.
Yeah, it sounds like the beginning of like the thought of freedom.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. But also, like, to speak to some of the people that follow you, it's not like I could look at that from where I was back then and go, oh, hey, that looks fun and free. It was like, no, oh, hey, that looks freaking terrifying. And this box that I've been living in for 54 years certainly is awful, and I'm empty all the time, but at least I know what's happening and I know I'm safe.
The certainty, right? That being in certainty, being in the knowing.
Exactly. Exactly. But I finally got in with that therapist, and it was such a funny story, Samantha. Like, I always Google, a practitioner before I go and I see them. And I find this therapist. So I'm waiting like 9 months to get in to see her. And I Google her, and she is clearly gay. And this is like after everything had kind of like fallen apart, like clearly gay. And I look at her and I was like, oh. And then I'm getting ready for the appointment. This is so funny. And I'm like doing my hair and like putting on this like cute little blazer. And I'm like, what the fuck am I doing? Like what is going on here?
So you noticed in the moment, you caught yourself. Yeah.
Yes. And I was like, okay, this is really weird, but I'm like, whatever. I'm just going to go to this appointment and like get on with it. And she was cute. And I was a little distracted by that, but I was probably just really needed to just kind of be like, oh, my life is falling apart. And then we didn't really get anywhere. It was just kind of a getting to know you first therapy session. I'm sure I cried a lot about everything that was going on, but I remember so clearly driving home going, oh my God, I could leave my husband and be with a woman who's actually emotionally available, and I would have something in common with, and would actually be fun to be around. And that was like, oh, something's going on here.
Wow. So that all really came up with this therapist. It kind of all hit you at once. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, and the hard part for me, and in some ways I can say it was also the easy part, was that, I finally landed in a safe place to be able to just kind of process things without all the distractions of my compulsive perfectionism and overachieving side. And old memories from my childhood started coming up. It's not like I'd never forgotten them, but they just like suddenly came up with new context. Like I remember this one incident where my mother like slapped me across the face. And my whole life, anytime I thought of that, I was like, wow, I must have been a shit. And that time it came up and I was like, wow, that was really inappropriate for her to do that. Like, huh. I was like, that's new context. And the other memory that came up was when I was 12 years old. And you and I have talked about this when we worked together. But when I was 12 years old, I had a crush on a girl, and I wrote her a note, and that she lost it, and it got found by the school. And this is back in what, 1980, 1979. And you can imagine, like, I lost every friend. It was absolutely horrific. And that was my first, like, do I want to be on this earth kind of moment, because nobody is here for me. And I couldn't turn to my parents. They were not supportive. But that memory came up, and instead of looking back and going and just being ashamed of what happened and being sad about it, that memory came back, and I was like, oh my God, maybe I've been gay all along, and I just didn't want to, like, actually embrace that.
Yeah.
And that was huge.
That is huge.
Yeah.
Yeah. And also, not uncommon considering the conditioning we have and considering compulsory heterosexuality and how that creates internalized homophobia, so much so that we can just not know ourselves because of that part that's holding so much fear and disgust and shame and just not accepting these feelings. Like, they're just not acceptable. I have some memories going back where it's like, oh, how come that didn't sink in? Like what, but no connection, like big crushes and no connection, no thinking maybe I'm gay. It never entered my mind.
Yeah, there's some really funny moments where I'm like, the clues were there.
Yeah. Which is, it's nice to see those clues that they were all there. It's sort of like reassuring in a way. And then it's also like, shit, you have your family and whatnot. I have my family and whatnot. I wouldn't have the same family had I, followed my clues. But, there's also some like loss in that, Yeah.
Yeah. That was hard to unpack, the grief. And that was one of the things that I think was really helpful in working with you. But I'm getting ahead of myself. But yeah, there was a ton of grief. There was a ton of grief around, especially after I was able to actually come out, to just kind of go, oh my God, my life could have been like this all along. I can't tell you how many tears I shed about that.
Yeah. Which I'm going to say is devastating. And also, I'm so glad you shed so many tears about it.
Yeah.
Right? Because that's part of the journey. And that's such a big part of what keeps people from wanting to take the journey, is actually being able to just not be terrified of their emotions. Mm-hmm. And it's okay. Like, grief is okay. Even though as a society, we don't do a great job of supporting people in grief. It is part of this process. It is part of this journey. And really, it is part of life, and if you live a life with no grief, and also I always say no regret.
Yeah.
How do you learn, how do you grow and how do you evolve? So I'm glad that you had many tears.
Why, thanks.
Yeah.
Well, once I was able to kind of like figure out that this was my truth and that I was gay, like, I remember so clearly, like, I hadn't told anybody. I hadn't even told my therapist yet. And I had this like journaling practice, and I still do. But I was journaling in it, and just suddenly I just burst into tears, but like the happiest tears of my life. And I just sat there, I'm going to get a little emotional, holding myself, because I felt like that gnawing emptiness was that missing part of myself that I'd banished when she was 12. And like, to have her back in my life, that was the first time I'd felt whole in my whole 54 years on this earth. And that was probably one of the most beautiful moments of my entire life.
Yeah, I bet.
Yeah.
Yeah, really integrating.
Yeah.
Yeah. So you were seeing this therapist that you were getting dressed up for.
Yeah.
Because you wanted her to think you were cute too.
I started seeing her in January. once I was able to kind of wrap my head around things, and I had a really difficult conversation with my ex-husband, husband at the time, where he was like, I don't feel like you're attracted to me anymore. And I hadn't really wanted to tell him just yet, but I couldn't let him sit in this feeling of like, this has nothing to do with you, And I was like, well, I actually am not attracted to you anymore. And here's why. And like, honestly, like as grief stricken as he was, suddenly it made sense to him too. He's like, oh, you have been attracted to women, and you have mentioned that to me, and I have caught you checking women out. And so like, it just made like sense. And so we walked through like, do we open up our relationship? Should we start dating? Like, how do we navigate this? Gotten really comfortable after 25 years. But there was also a lot of staleness. And I don't think that's unique to being gay
Straight.
Or coming out or in any way, shape, or form. Like after 25 years and your kids are grown, like you're two different people. And a lot of couples separate at that point.
Mm-hmm.
And so that was only, I think, now in retrospect, looking back, that was only part of the reason that we ended up separating. But that was kind of the initiating reason. But once I was able to like be like, okay, this is like how I want to live my life now. That's how I found you, because I got lost in lesbian TikTok. And I was like, I found my people.
God, lesbian TikTok. And I mean, COVID created lesbian TikTok, I think. That's when it all happened. And lesbian TikTok just blew up because everybody was stuck at home and they were just on TikTok. It's so funny how that was the tsunami of women who were realizing, holy shit, I'm gay,
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So, okay. So you came across my content.
I did. And obviously it resonated because I knew that I'd been basically gay my whole life and that I'd not acknowledged it. I had no idea how to navigate out of that old world and into this new gay world where I felt like, I remember my therapist calling me a baby gay. And I thought that was sweet and endearing. And it also was just so intimidating. Like, is anybody going to take me seriously? Like, I've got no street cred. I don't know what the hell I'm doing. I don't know how to be with a woman. I don't know how to date a woman. I don't even want to date again. Like, it was super intimidating. But I was like, oh my God, this Samantha Fox chick has lesbian school. Like, that's what
That's hilarious. Oh my gosh.
Like, how to be a lesbian. I mean, that's really how I saw it. But that's like, that was exactly what I needed at the time, because I'm sure I could have found my way. I think it would have taken me a lot longer.
Yes.
But like just the fact that you had been through it, that you had other women going through it, like I really had no idea how to navigate it. And that course that you did was like, oh my God, it was just mind-blowingly helpful.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, it's really amazing what 12 weeks can do. I'm a therapist, right? And I have clients that I work with for years, 10 years, 15 years that I've been seeing some clients. That in 12 weeks of this program, I have watched women go from, I've never even liked men. I've never married a man, but I still think I'm bisexual. And I'm just like, why would you think you're bisexual if you've never been attracted to a man? Compulsory heterosexuality, so
Yes.
This confusion to like embodied and dating women, and like some of those people are now like engaged and living with partners or just so fully in themselves and so living like their gay life with so much pride and no more guilt. But literally in like 12 weeks to watch this happen for me it was a lot of good juju coming back at me. Yeah. So
yeah. Well, you get what you put out, Samantha, like truly.
Yeah. But one thing I want to say is, and this is just so interesting. So this feeling of like, oh my God, I'm 54. I've never been with a woman. I don't even know how to date. How do I meet women? I have no experience. Like, how am I going to be sexually with a woman? Like, I don't know how to do anything. And I feel so unskilled. And then I'm going to be with someone who has been with women. And this is so intimidating. And I'm going to need somebody to be really patient with me. And so this is something I hear a lot from people like you that are coming out a little bit later. And just for anyone who's listening in, you know, I had a conversation yesterday with a good friend of mine who is a lifelong lesbian. And she's been with a couple different partners before she married her wife, who she was with for many, many years, almost 20 years. They ended up getting divorced, and she's been single now for a few years. And we were talking yesterday, and she said to me, I'm feeling like really unskilled in the bedroom. And, I was married for almost 20 years, but we stopped having sex. And I need someone who's going to be patient with me because I need more skill. This is a lifelong lesbian. And
interesting.
Yeah. And I said to her, this is not really about skill. It might be a little bit about confidence, in just confidence in communicating, confidence in sensual and sexual intimacy and the connection that creates. But every person that you meet, if you are sexually intimate with a person, every time you meet somebody different, it's going to be different. And they're going to like things that the other person did not like. And their anatomy is going to be a little bit different. They might have very sensitive breasts or not so sensitive breasts, or whatever things they like or don't like. Every person's different. So your skill level is not something you just need to achieve and then you go out in the world like a carpenter or something like that. You know what I mean?
Oh, yeah.
This is about vulnerability. This is about communicating with a person. So, just for anyone listening in who's having these feelings of well, I'm in my 50s and I've never been with a woman and I'm going to be so unskilled. No, this is exploration. This is playground, and communication and building intimacy. It's not about going in with a huge amount of skill. So I just had to say that because it reminded me of this conversation.
Well, I think that was something that you covered when I was working with you, because that gave me such comfort to be oh, it's not that I just need to learn how to be with a woman. Every woman I would ever be with going forward, I'm going to have to learn how to be with her.
Yes.
And that was oh, okay, that I can handle. The bigger thing was so intimidating, but I'm just going to also put it out there is that when you can, to your point earlier, when you can be fully embodied and actually be in your body while you're making love to your partner.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
wow.
That's some good shit.
Oh my God. Nothing I'd ever experienced in my entire life.
Yeah, I'm with you on that. I'm so with you on that. So true. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Just that part alone was really worth it. I mean,
yeah. I mean, it's worth it to do all the work, go through all the grief, go through all the difficulty and all the feelings to get to that. Cause that is pretty rewarding.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Well, I know that past me, because I was pretty sexually repressed before the shit hit the fan in my life. And that might not have been a draw for me because I had no idea that life in a relationship and sex could be that good. I had none whatsoever. So I didn't even dare hope. I didn't even dare think that could be something for me. But what I did miss with every man that I'd ever been with was that emotional connection and that emotional support and intimacy and true communication and true compatibility. When you're actually able to be your real self with a partner, that's what I used to crave. And again, I had no idea how good that could be.
Yeah.
I now sleep with my best friend and we cuddle up and we go bike riding and we camp and and we fuck and we kiss and we cuddle some more. Like, it is just, again, I could never in my entire life imagined that a relationship could be this good. And I can now fully say I have never been in love before. Never, ever been in love before until now.
Amazing. I mean, I love that point that when you've been repressed your whole life and you've never connected even to being embodied yourself sexually, how can you even imagine that this could be on the other side? I had that same kind of feeling as you in my marriage of like, and it's really interesting because before I got married, I had this really, I don't know, like this connection to myself that felt very, I'm just going to say, I felt very free spirited. I was like a very free spirited young person. And when I decided that it was time for me to do the thing that I had to do because it was what society expected of me, I was 26 and I kind of like died inside.
Mm.
And I spent my marriage feeling like that. Like I felt dead on the inside. And it was really interesting how meeting a woman when I was 32, I came back to life and I came back to this young me. It's amazing how our brains can block all of this stuff out so we don't remember it. And then how we can come back together with our younger exiles and integrate everything and become really whole and really embodied. And it's such a journey, and it really does take work and dedication to do it. It's so worth it. It's just so worth it.
So worth it.
Yeah.
So worth it. I'm going through a training right now, and we were having a conversation just yesterday, and it just became so clear to me that all of my overachieving, all of my kind of compulsive, like perfectionism, or just, focus on appearances and pleasing other people and doing things right and being successful, like authenticity and overachieving, authenticity and perfectionism are not compatible. They are not compatible with each other. Mm-hmm. And once you get a taste of authenticity, you cannot go back.
Yeah.
You cannot.
Yeah. Yeah. It's like a whole different way of breathing,
Yeah.
Yeah. So true. I love that. So you were in the program. You're already at this point where you were opening up the relationship, possibly dating a little bit, having some experiences. So what happened from there?
Yeah. Yep. You had this really great part of that program where I could send you questions on Loom, mm-hmm. and you would send me, mm-hmm. responses back on Loom, and you gave me some journaling prompts. And, I was unpacking this whole, I would call it trauma around what happened when I was 12, and mm-hmm. how I was so scared to like come out. And I couldn't really think about being with a woman as a partner. I could think about being with one sexually, but everything was just still really packed into kind of into a ball, if that makes sense. And you gave me this assignment to, I think that was the first time that I did some journaling with my right hand and my left hand, but I got in a conversation basically with that part of myself who was 12 and acted like, and because it really truly felt like it was like two different people, because it kind of was. And that's, yeah. I don't know what people know. That's internal family systems. I call it parts work, but
yeah, parts work.
I found it insanely valuable in my own healing journey. But I sat down and I did a bunch of journaling in terms of, what it would be like to come out and what that part of me needed in order to feel safe. Mm-hmm. And I'm sure I still have that journal somewhere, but that part of me was like, oh, well, if you're going to do this, here's what I need to feel safe. And I was like, oh, well, that makes a ton of sense. I can do that for you. Like, and it was just like the floodgates opened after that journaling session. And it was within just a few weeks time, like I'd come out to the remaining family that I was, that I still was in touch with. I started coming out to friends. I put up a dating profile. Like suddenly I was like out, and that felt safe, which I'd never experienced. Not that it always feels safe, especially in this day and age, but we're not going to go there right now. But like, just it was a sense of safety that I had not experienced before. And to be able to feel safe to come out, that just changed everything. And that was very, very, very specifically after working with you and in that program and doing that journaling exercise. Oh, I'll never forget that, Samantha.
Yeah, I remember that too. I remember giving you those prompts, and I don't know that I knew that was like your breakthrough.
Yeah.
But that's amazing. And, for different people, it's different things. For some people, it's their sexual narrative history and sort of seeing what they got packed with growing up in their family systems and realizing, oh, like that actually doesn't align with me today. Like I don't think those things anymore, but I am still living by those.
Mm-hmm.
Right. Or sometimes the people pleasing, fawning responses that people have and that they really struggle to get out of because they don't know how else to feel valuable and worthy in the world. So there's always something different that kind of opens, and sometimes it's many of them that opens the doors for people to kind of start, flowing more and becoming more embodied. But I love that for you.
Yeah. Yeah. And the flood, like I said, the floodgates opened, and it was only a few weeks after you gave me that journal prompt that I met my now current partner. And I'm so grateful for that, because had I met her before I did that journaling, there's no way I could have been open to that relationship in any way, shape, or form. But just being able to have that just kind of openness and that spaciousness and just some inner acceptance.
Mm-hmm.
And it, it sounds ooby gooby, but I swear to God that the universe had my back throughout that entire thing. It really felt like an awful ride, but absolutely everything that happened supported me in getting to where I am now, which is so much happier, so much healthier, whole, complete, amazing, just all around. But when I met that woman, I would say that was probably somewhat of a stereotypical lesbian first dating thing, where we were just like practically in love on the first weekend.
Now, was she a lifelong lesbian or?
Pretty much, yes.
Okay.
She had dated girls from when she was 12. She had a relationship with a guy in high school, but after that, she's like, yeah, I'm done with this. So yes. She had been married to a woman for a while and had been divorced a couple years prior to meeting me.
And you met on the apps?
Yeah, we met on Bumble.
We met on Bumble. Oh my gosh, I love it.
I have a little bumblebee as part of my tattoo.
Oh,
here.
I love it.
Yeah.
I love it. Yeah.
Yeah. And I was grateful that I found her, and what I was able to find getting into the dating world is that, I didn't come across not one lesbian that was like, oh, well, why didn't you know? Or how could you have lived that way? Or how could you have been with a guy? Like every single lesbian that I have come across was like, yeah, I was able to do it, but I understand why you couldn't. It's just thankfully, just we've all been kind of baked in this compet patriarchal baking pan. And some of us, just have been thankfully pulled out of the pan earlier than others.
Yeah.
And I was really afraid of that. And that was one of the reasons that I, wanted to work with you, was like, how do I navigate this? And it was so grateful to find that the lesbian community was so welcoming and being like, oh yeah, totally get it. What else are you interested in? Like, it was like just not even a thing. And I was like, oh.
I love that. Yeah. I do think there's something like also very nice, and I don't know if you have this, but something very nice about having friends who also came out later. I do find myself, let's say, and I've been out for a long time now, 23 years, I think it is. But when I am around a group of all lesbians that are lifelong lesbians, I still feel I feel different than them.
Interesting.
Yeah. And I just feel like my life experiences were different, even though I was still quite young, but I did marry a man. I do also have 3 kids, that I raised, with them going back and forth. And that was my primary focus, even though I was out and I had partners during those time periods. I wasn't doing the things that my lifelong lesbian friends might have done at those earlier ages where they were getting together and they were doing fun community things. I wasn't doing any of those things. So I do find myself feeling a little bit outside of the group. I'm also very highly sensitive, so maybe that's part of it too, but I do feel a little outside of the lifelong lesbian crew. Like they've got time on me, and they've got experiences on me. So I always really appreciate also having friends that have come out later, and also just, this whole community of such brave humans that go through this journey. And I also feel like I can relate so strongly to everybody, but I'm happy that that's been your experience and you were so really embraced. And I've heard that also from other women, like really embraced in the lesbian community.
Yeah, there is definitely those other late in life lesbians. I don't know a lot of them, but yes, there is a bond there that like we get each other, and there's not that you have to talk about. And yes, and you don't need to do a lot to bond with that kind of person. Like, yeah, we know.
Yeah, we've been through it.
But yes, I have been really fortunate on that front. And I do know that that's not a universal experience, but super grateful for it.
Yeah. So tell me a little bit about where you are today. Like what's happening for you today? I know you're in this wonderful relationship that you met this person while you were still in the program, which is amazing.
Yeah. Yeah, I know I was a little distracted in your program after I met her.
I remember that. I think you missed 1 week or maybe 2, and then you came back and everybody was like, "Where have you been, Wendy?" And you were like, "Oh my God, I've been having so much sex." I remember that.
Yes.
You're like, it goes all night and like into the morning and like it doesn't stop. I remember that. I really remember that.
That's hysterical. I am pretty sure I did say that. Yeah. Okay, maybe it's not quite like that anymore. I mean, but I think that's a little bit of new relationship energy going on there.
Totally NRE. Yes, definitely.
Oh, that's so funny.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I spent a year or so just kind of allowing myself to be in this new life and adjusting. Like it was a lot. It was very healing, very, very healing. And there was times when I would just burst into tears. And my partner would just hold space for me, and I'd just be like, "Oh my God!" Like, there was just a lot of gratitude and grief and not knowing and trying to figure out, like, now that I had this taste of authenticity, like, who am I besides just this newly lesbian mom of 3 and grandma? It's like I looked back on my entire career and all my friendships, and I'm like, what of that old life fits in this new place and this new me? And that just took time, and that was probably one of the harder parts in terms of just having the patience to allow myself to just not have all the answers and not have everything nice and neat in a tight little bow right away, because that's
which is life. I mean, that's
right.
Like what you just described is like daily life.
Yes.
Right.
But still recovering perfectionist and overachiever me likes things in a nice neat package with a little bow on top, and I had to really not do that. But that was how I coped with not having that part of myself. Was, well, I'll just create this big beautiful life that looks great.
Mm-hmm.
even though I'm
It'll be
dying
very
inside.
beautiful to everybody
Yes,
who sees it from the outside. Yeah.
exactly. Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Not so pretty on the inside.
Mm-hmm.
And so it was, I think, it was just some time to get congruent with that beauty that I was able to find inside and, getting that to be outside. And then I tried to go back to my old career, which was really interesting because I had a 20-something year career in design and publishing. And I went back and I loved publishing, loved it, loved design. And I just sat there and I was like doing this going, this still feels empty. Like this still doesn't feel congruent. This is kind of old me still. I even had to step into a new career after that, which also took some grief because, it would have been really easy to just go back to what I knew. But I'm grateful that the universe had my back. And because I'd sold my business, I had some savings to just give myself that time and space to just figure out what was right and what was authentic and what was real. I was able to realize just how much what happened when I was 12 had affected me in my career as well as my personal life, because there was no way in hell I was ever going to let myself be visible, but I had no idea why. I was just terrified of being visible. But I was an entrepreneur. Like, how do you run a business and not be, this is my company? But I was hiding behind products and hiding behind brands. And anytime I had to get in front of a camera or put myself out there, I would totally freeze up and be like, what's going on? I can't handle this. And I continually sabotaged myself and held myself back. No idea why.
Wow.
And then once, I was able to walk through this journey and then realized that I had changed so much after trying to go back to publishing. I was like, oh, and that was one of the core wounds that I've finally been able to heal in the last few months, is that I would call my visibility wound. To just be able to be seen and to have my own voice and be my own product. I have a degree in psychology, for fuck's sake. I've wanted to be a coach or a therapist for almost my entire life. But being a coach or a therapist means you're the face of the company, and no way was I going to do that. So I'm now stepping into business coaching, but only for LGBTQ people, because I understand so clearly what it's like to need to be visible for your business, but also have that not feel safe and have that be a threat, especially now, which again, we're not going to go there, but it's kind of traumatic in terms of what's happening in the outside world and what's happening to our community and how they're trying to push us down and push us aside, and how much more bravery it takes to just claim your space and say, no, I fucking exist and I'm going to still exist whether or not you like it.
Yeah.
That's not a people-pleasing place to.
No. Zero people pleasing there. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Wow. That's intense.
Yeah.
I love that. I love the full circle healing of this hidden self, this hidden young 12-year-old that had to hide forever up until now, and is finally able to, I know you said even here you're happy to have your name and your face. This is very visible.
Yes.
And your voice. And it's really just a full circle. It's like a gift. This is such a gift to your 12-year-old.
Oh, I love the way you put that. And that's so true. And that, oh God, yes, very much so. In fact, the other gift that I have for my little 12-year-old self is that I was not ever going to go back to my maiden name. After the divorce, it was not as friendly as I had hoped. So I am dropping my married name. I thought it'd be easier to just kind of transition and keep the married name, but no. And so I'm like, well, what do I just go with my first name and middle name, which I'm doing, but I decided to also tag on a third name, which is the name that I used to watch that my name was when I was 12, which is Robin. So I'm going to legally change my name to Wendy Faith Robin soon.
Oh, wow. I love it.
And that's going back to when I was a kid and I hated my name Wendy and I wished my parents had named me Robin.
I love that. I have that moment too. It's so funny. And the name, I don't feel the same anymore about the name that I wanted, but I really wanted to be named Ashley. That was the name. And actually, I really like the name Ash. So that would have worked for me even today. But, Samantha's okay.
Yeah.
Because we've got Sam. So that works
Yes.
too.
Yes, it does.
Oh my gosh. I love that. So you're bringing this up sort of now after the fact that the divorce was a little bit, I don't know, contentious or just difficult or.
I did probably skip over that. Honestly, it started out great. Like, we would sit there and we'd help each other with our dating profiles. And I'd be like, you got to make sure that you change your Facebook status to not married because these girls are going to check on you. He's like, oh, well, I didn't think of that kind of stuff. So we kind of like, at first we were our little cheerleaders, but unfortunately it just came down to, well, the money.
Yeah. Oh yeah. That was my situation too.
Yeah.
That was where it got very ugly. Yeah.
Yeah. And he went from alcoholism to being a compulsive debtor, and I was very successful. So yeah. So it got a little ugly around that. But, again, I have to say that old me would have given in and just given him money to fawn and keep the peace, and that's how I would protect myself with him. But once I kind of was able to step into more of me, I just kind of went, no, you're not taking what I built. And well, of course that would make it a little contentious if I stopped enabling. And but that had nothing to do with the gay part of it. You know what I mean? That would be just normal divorce stuff.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know. The gay, at least, I don't know if there are any states at this point where the gay piece does actually become part of it in our country, but that part it doesn't weigh in terms of even, finances or like when it comes down to marriage is a legal contract. And so when we talk about like the emotional pieces of like, well, you were an addict and well, you're gay and you had an affair, those pieces, I mean, at least when I went through my divorce, I remember, the attorney just saying, none of this stuff matters. Like the emotional things, take them to your therapist, go talk to your therapist.
Yes.
This is very black and white, it's legal and that's it. So yeah.
Yes. I would say that for the first 6 months or so, like, things were fine. I had dreams that our post-divorce life would be like Glennon Doyle and how she separated from her husband in Untamed.
Yes.
And she married Abby Wambach, and Abby and her ex-husband were friends, and they would take their kids to soccer together. And that, was probably a little idealistic of me.
Yeah.
So I know it could have gone way worse too. Like it truly could have gotten way worse. And I've seen some stories from women whose husbands really push back and make that whole process really difficult. And these, oh God, it just gets to me because now that I'm on the other side, like I see these women blaming themselves like, oh, how can I leave this guy? He's so good. And this is all my fault that I'm breaking up the family. I'm like, girl, this is not your fault. This is a society sort of like you have been living by other people's rules and by other people's standards. And you've been living your life for everybody but yourself your entire life. This is not your fault. You are not the problem here. Oh, God, that just breaks my heart every time I see that because I just want to scream at them. This is fault.
Yeah. I mean, this is exactly who I work with.
Yes.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah. And it's interesting because it really is framed that way also by society in a way. And I have to say, I know people who were married to men that came out after many, 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 many years of marriage, and women who also blame their ex-husband for ruining their life, for taking all their good years. Women who in their 50s, their husbands came out and they feel like, now I'm in my 50s, no man's going to want me, and he ruined my life. It's an interesting thing that we get caught in these ways of thinking about marriage and relationships, and that we're responsible for somebody else's life because we're married. I don't know. All of it leaves me just, there's like a lot of disillusionment, I would say, in all of that.
Well, it really speaks to your expertise in understanding what comp het is, because I'd never heard of that until I figured out I was gay. And then I was like, what? Just wrapping your head around that and understanding how that forces us to be who we not, and learning about that through that program with you, and just being able to understand it intellectually, and then starting to learn it, be able to understand it more at emotional level, and then, be able to kind of integrate that into my body. That was a process.
It's a process. It's a journey.
Yes.
I always say this is a journey, and it's not for the faint of heart.
It is not.
It's not.
No, it's not. But I mean, I talk about this with my partner all the time now. Like, if I had known how good life could be, I would have done this so long ago.
Yeah. So that's a little message, a little call out for those of you that are listening in that are a little earlier. You're having those feelings, but you're, maybe you're in your 20s, or maybe you're in your 30s, or like even your early 40s, and you're having these feelings, but you're just feeling so guilty and like you're going to ruin everybody's life. And how can you do this to your kids and all of that, it is a journey, but there is something really beautiful on the other side, which is being authentically who you are and integrated and embodied, and not living in the box of what society said you're supposed to be doing. Yeah.
I think one of the things that I look back on, because I was so afraid that I was just fooling myself. Like, I was so unhappy in my life, even before I figured out that I was gay, but I was so unhappy in my life. And the men and myself, I bought into it, but the men in my life would be like, well, the grass isn't greener on the other side. And that's, one of the ways that they would keep me kind of in that box that served them and not me. But I would say that, not only is the grass greener on the other side, but it's like the difference between like going from your backyard and then walking into Yosemite. It's like, yes, the grass is greener on the other side, and it's wild mountains and gorgeous fields and waterfalls and sunsets and cliffs and fucking magic.
That's going to be the name of this episode. The grass is greener on the other side. I love that. That's so good. Oh my gosh. So good. Such a great place. Oh, I love it.
But that is exactly what it's like.
Well, thank you for sharing all of that with everybody who's listening in. Do you want to share a little bit about what you've recently been working on and what you're offering?
Oh, I would love to. Thank you. So, as I was saying earlier, not being able to be visible and having so many fears around putting myself out there was directly tied to being in the closet. And once I was able to come out and embody this new life, I've been able to completely shift my career. So I've gone through what's called an International Coaching Federation accredited program, which is coaching, and there's a whole trauma-informed piece, because I know that trauma is a scary word, but it can be very traumatic coming out and letting go of an old life and walking into a new life. So I now am working with LGBTQ plus, who, if you're on the flag, I want to know you, is how I like to think about it. but helping them on the business side of things. Like, you help them come out. I now work with our community in terms of being able to overcome some of those stumbling blocks that have been baked into us as a kid and how those hold us back in business, because that's exactly what I did my whole career.
I love it. Another full circle.
It is absolutely a full circle.
I love that. Circle. So this is just such a healing journey for you. You are fully living your healing.
Yeah. Yeah, very much so.
I love that. Well, I'm excited for you on this new venture of yours and this new journey helping our community. And I'm going to attach how to contact Wendy and the website in the show notes so people know where to find you.
Thank you.
I'm so glad that you reached out and said you wanted to come on and share, your story, which I think is so important for people to hear, and also just to share where you are now, which is on the much greener side of the grass, which I just love. So good. So good.
Well, I think that a lot of the work that I'm doing now, just in general, in my personal growth and now in my business is like, I'm wishing that I could reach back through time and help old me to get here faster. And that's not possible. So if I can reach out and help some of the women who were like old me and help them get to here faster, fuck yeah, I'm all about that. And I really hope that I can be some sort of beacon of light to let them know that, it feels scary and it seems hard, and it's not always going to feel safe. And every step of this journey is absolutely worth it. And so I hope if one person hears this and goes, you know what, I'm going towards that authentic future me, that's worth it to me.
Yeah, I love that. And I love this way of helping people get to really come out of hiding and be visible faster through the work that you're going to be doing now. It reminds me a lot of my journey, right? Because I came out 23 years ago. And, as I was saying earlier, this 12-week program I just can't believe the transformation that I've seen people make and change their lives, like change everything in their lives. 12 weeks, it's 3 months. Like, it took me years. Just the divorce was 3 years. And then I started figuring out the trauma that I had lived through. And that took a number of years.
Yes.
It was a slow, long road, to get here. So 12 weeks, you doing it also, like, helping people become visible and comfortable with that. I love it. So great. So,
well, I know you didn't ask me to do this, but I cannot recommend working with you more highly. Like, it was absolutely pivotal to, like I said, to have my lesbian school that I could go to.
So funny.
I know. That's exactly what it was. It was exactly what I needed, because when I was coming out of a place of having that security and then letting go of that security, to be able to wrap my head around what this next phase of my life gave me the security that I needed to understand it, to be able to navigate it before I could actually create that security internally. So it was absolutely a critical stepping stone for me, Samantha. And I'm so grateful to you and the work that you do.
Oh, I'm so glad to hear that. Thank you for sharing, and thank you for coming on.
Oh, thank you for having me. It's just cool to catch up too.
Absolutely.
All right. Thanks again, Samantha.
Thank you for spending this time with me on Unbox Yourself with Samantha Fox. If this episode resonated with you, share it with someone who needs to hear it. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and leave a review. It helps more folks find these conversations. If you're ready to unbox from something that's keeping you stuck, I would love to support you. You can find the application to the show at unboxyoursexuality.com. Let's stay connected. Find me on Instagram, TikTok, and YouTube at Lesbian Curiosity Coach. Give me a follow and join the conversation. Remember, we only have this one time through. Why not unbox yourself and let your true self shine in all its beautiful glory?